ground. So hockey started, and we were the only club which were given fixture by the Europeans.
Mahan Singh was an avid hockey enthusiast who not only coached the sport but also gave commentary during matches. He developed hockey in Kenya and is credited for raising the standards of the game in the country. This was achieved through organizing matches for Kenya with the then hockey powerhouses, India, Pakistan and South Africa.
My father was a hockey maniac. He was the first man to conceive the idea of having a permanent club. He collected a whole group around him, people like Sham Singh and Bakhtavar Singh and so many other Singhs. All Singhs got together and they collected the money and they built this club.
When I came into the squad in 1957, I was coached by Mr. Man Singh. He was a person who brought hockey to Kenya. The first team from India, 1948, which came here, I think was all the effort of Mr. Man Singh. And Man Singh was my coach for 1960 Olympics.
Very few, if any, can talk of representing their country in 5 Olympics. That about sums up the achievements of one of the most talented sons of Kenya hockey, Avtar Singh Sohal.
Avtar used to just live here around the corner. And he came to my father when he was very young. And my father came, I remember him saying, I have a boy who has the skills and the stamina and the enthusiasm to be the best player in the world. And you know, Avtar, after the training and everything, I think he scored most corners than anybody else in Kenya.
Avtar Singh Sohal is an outstanding person. He's an icon here. He's a key figure in our community as far as hockey is concerned.
Well, I started my hockey in 1957. What happened in 1956, we had 2 fullbacks who played in Melbourne. One of them went for further studies in UK, and the other one, when he came, he retired. So there was a vacancy of a fullback in the Kenya team. I was considered as one of the probables, so I worked very hard to get into the team. So I played my first game for Kenya in 1957 against South Africa.
Hidden away in the heart of Park Road is a club that was formed in 1940. A club with a rich heritage in cricket, Sir Ali Muslim Sports Club.
A lot of the cricketers that came up used to stay in the neighborhood of Sir Ali Muslim Club in Park Road in Nairobi. And so Sir Ali was a formidable team, I mean, in the 60s and the 70s.
Some of them were just ordinary, not players as full, but guys who would be just running around the ball to catch it and give the ball back to the grounds. That is how they came by, got in a grip of the game. That is from our fellows who were top.
The club is not only credited for developing cricket amongst its community, but also for churning out some of the finest cricketers of the Kenyan cricket team. Mahmood Qureshi's association with Sir Ali Muslim Sports Club goes back to 1958 when he was 16 years old.
When I was a child, there were a few cricketers that I would admire and look up to. And some of those cricketers were Zulfikar Ali, who used to play for Sir Ali, Mahmood Qureshi played for Sir Ali, Jawahir Shah played for Nairobi Gymkhana, and a few others. Mahmood Qureshi was one of the most meticulous person in terms of how he structured all his things. He played the first World Cup in 1975 as East Africa in those days. He was a successful Kenya captain. And when I became the captain, he was our manager. So there was a lot I learned from him, of course being my senior. And we had a very, very cordial relationship, and he should be remembered and be acknowledged for the role and the contribution he did to Kenya cricket.
Asif Karim has represented Kenya in 25 official one-day internationals in a career which lasted from 1980 to 2003. He was an attacking bowler that evolved into a one-day expert who read the game very well. At the 2003 Cricket World Cup, he put up a performance against the then giants Australia, which to date is still talked about.
After the 15 overs, I was given the ball. And I said, fine, it's a challenge to bowl against the Australians. And so when I bowled to Ricky Ponting, he was facing the Australian captain. And I bowled him the first ball, he played it down. And the second ball, he struggled, the ball turned, and I all of a sudden realized that this wicket has a good turn. So I've got to bowl a good line to keep the pressure on. So as I kept the pressure on, I realized he was struggling. And on the fifth ball, I pushed an arm ball and deceived him totally, and beat him, got LBW out. And then, you feel so good because here is a guy who's been dominating cricket, is getting huge hundreds, huge scores, making the bowlers look so ordinary, and then you deceive a guy who was number one at that time in the world. And at one stage, I think after I bowled my 8 overs, I was 8 overs, 6 maidens, 2 runs and 3 wickets. Had I not bowled the 9th over, it could have been a world record of all time, being the best bowling spell in the World Cup. And then the icing to the cake was to be named man of the match, despite losing. It's something that was the perfect closure to my cricketing career.
There were also other greats from yesteryears, Harilal Shah being one of them. His cricketing career spanned 30 years, during which he captained the East Africa cricket team to the first Cricket World Cup in England in 1975. He also sat on the International Cricket Conference Committee for 14 years. No other Kenyan has sat on this committee after Harilal.
I would describe Harilal Shah as a player that the spectators would look forward to being on the field, because he would be always looking for runs, and runs is what counts. So it was a delight to watch because there was somebody acting there, batting away. When it came to fielding, he was like a panther, waiting to stop the ball, to catch the ball at any position. He was a very safe fielder. If a ball went towards him, it was bound to be a catch. And I think these sort of things are things that people remember. You have somebody there really giving a hard time to the opponents.
Currently, a lot of Asian Kenyans are following in the footsteps of the greats such as Harilal Shah and Mahmood Qureshi. One such individual is Hiran Varaya. In 2012, he took 12 wickets against Ireland in the Intercontinental Cup match, taking 6 wickets in both innings.
I think so the batsman played a bad shot, and basically Ashish Bagai, the captain of Canada, and he kind of played across the line and I got him clean bowled, and that time I didn't even realize that that's my first ball of the wicket. After like second or third ball, the umpire came to me, he's like, is this your debut? So I said, yes it is. So it's like, that means that's your first ball international career wicket, and again a proud moment for me.
In 2003, he took 5 wickets for 37 runs against West Indies in India at the first Cricket Commonwealth Games. He shows a lot of promise for Kenya cricket and is surely following in his predecessor's steps. The Kenyan Asians have also represented Kenya at table tennis. Most of these champions came from humble beginnings and got introduced to the game in very peculiar ways.
We used to play on the dining table, and we didn't have nets. We used to keep the compass boxes and play the real ping pong. The key achievement for my table tennis was in 1975 in All Africa Games. It was a club championship where I was representing a club called Aryan Club. The biggest achievement is to represent your own country. See the different standard of table tennis, see the different players, see the different cultures, the different countries,
and that gave a lot of exposure in life.
In those years we had measles, once in a, you get once in a lifetime, and unfortunately I had one of them, and my elder brother Bharat had won the Aryan Open. He was in the 5 finals of Aryan Open tournament, and I was partnering with him in doubles under 17, and I was that time 11 years old, and I said it's do or die. I have to be on the table to get this win for him, and that was one of the best tournaments I would recall when being sick and I was supposed to play.
This peculiar induction in the game is still carried on, Miren Shah being a prime example.
The interest in table tennis came at St. Mary's whilst I was in primary school. I was in probably standard 3. We used to play on these wooden tables on the side, and that's where it all started. That same year in 1999 we got selected to play at local East African championships in Tanzania and Uganda. The next one was where in 2001 we got selected to go play for to the second All Africa, my second All Africa Junior Championship in Egypt, and that was quite big. And you see players of different quality and skill, and it's quite good learning experience.
Swimming is a popular sport amongst the Kenyan Asians. The youths take the plunge into the deep end at an early stage, resulting in champions representing the country.
Amar Shah is one of the finest swimmers Kenya has ever produced. He won 2 bronze medals for Kenya at the All Africa Games in 2011 in Maputo, Mozambique.
I represented Kenya in the 2006 and 2010 Commonwealth Games. The 2006 Commonwealth Games was in Melbourne, and the 2010 Commonwealth Games was in Delhi. Melbourne was a fantastic experience. It was very similar to the Olympics, so that's the time when I did the 50 meters and 100 meters breaststroke in Melbourne. In 2010, the Commonwealth Games, I managed to make the semi-finals, which was quite a big achievement.
Golf is a sport that is becoming popular in Kenya. The Kenyan Asians are now taking it professionally. Riz Charania is currently the chairman of the professional golfers in Kenya.
Picked up a golf club at 10, came out to the golf course with my parents, and just picked it up from there and really enjoyed the game from there. I found it to be probably the most challenging game that I've ever played.
Riz Charania is one of the few Kenyan Asian golf professionals. He is the resident pro at the Windsor Golf and Country Club.
I was playing a lot of cricket, played a lot of rugby, played football, hockey, golf, so I was always outdoors. And basically, I found that I was talented at golf. It was a passion of mine from a very young age, so I decided, I think at about the age of 16, that this is what I want to do.
He is more than just a player. He is passing on his talent to the youth of Kenya through his golf academy.
My vision is basically to have a center of excellence for golf in the future, looking maybe 5 years down the line. So a kid who starts at the age of, say for example 4, which is the youngest that I'm teaching at the moment, will then progress and then graduate all the way up into, if they do want to be a very good amateur player or even a professional player. My best achievement so far was in 2012 when I finished ranked 2nd in Kenya in the Order of Merit. That year I had won 2 KCB events, one in Nakuru and the other one at Muthaiga. So most recently those 2 have been my key achievement.
Anil Shah started swinging a club at an early age.
After finishing my high school, I was a professional golfer. I went to the UK. I started playing on the tour at a very young age, straight after school. While I was playing on tour, they have a category for touring professionals to get a degree in professional golf coaching and become a member of the Professional Golfers Association. So I started that in 2010 at a very late age of 32, and by the time in the last 3 years I managed to graduate and become one of the very few PGA qualified coaches in Africa.
After a stint in America, Ajay Shah chose to come back home, not only to play golf, but to start a foundation that taught golf to the less fortunate.
I had a friend in school, he used to play golf and with his parents, and we went there one day and I just fell in love with the game. I just thought it was a great game, and ever since playing it that day, I just never stopped playing. I just work with kids right now. I'm just focusing on kids under 12 years old. The first and foremost thing is the kid has to love the game.
The Baines brothers are arguably one of the best squash duo in Kenya. They have both proudly carried the Kenyan flag high at the Commonwealth Games.
My first Commonwealth Games when I represented Kenya was in 1998 in Malaysia. So the standard of squash we saw there was amazing. The exposure we also got was amazing. The experience all in all was, you just cannot describe it. I've represented Kenya 4 times in the last 4 Commonwealth Games, so for me it's almost indescribable. I mean, the experience itself when you walk out of at that stadium at the opening ceremony and they sort of shout out Kenya, and you sort of get goose pimples on your body, and you're walking around that stadium and waving to the crowd, and it really, for me, all that training, all the effort you put in to get onto the team just for that moment it makes it worthwhile,
Squash is not just a man's sport. Safina Madani has driven this point home.
I represented Kenya in Delhi in 2010. That's probably my most wonderful experience, actually. We were all staying at like an athletes village there, and it was a block of 240 Kenyan athletes in one village. Seeing just athletes of different shapes and sizes, it is truly a wonderful experience to have to compete for your country.
A rallying career that started in 1979 with a win at the Kenya Training Rally Championship saw Azhar Anwar end up winning the Kenya National Rally Championship 3 times in 1998, 2005 and 2006. He is one of the most successful drivers in Kenya.
Kenya Rally Championship has been a very tough series for me. My first win was in 1994, not the championship but a national event, and then in 1995 with the Daewoo, the Safari win, and in 1998 I won 2 of the biggest championships. It had never happened before. That was the Group N Championship and the Kenya National Overall Championship. These wins were with vehicles that we built here ourselves.
1995 saw him get involved with a local dealer of Daewoo on a project that developed the Daewoo Cielo into a rally car.
Daewoo, before we got involved in 1995, was a name people had not heard of, not only in Africa but worldwide. These were Korean cars, and we ourselves didn't know were they really good cars or not, how would they perform. So it was very intensive and very demanding for us to pick a totally unknown car and to prepare it for the Safari Rally. It has always been my passion to encourage other people to join motorsport and to help them, and I'm proud that over the years I have managed to bring many people into motorsport. In the early days, I was probably the pioneer to do this thing. I made a booklet, a beginner's guide to motorsport, and it was so interesting to people. I mean, it wasn't even like something we were selling. We were just like making photocopies and distributing them. And it became kind of like the Bible for several years for newcomers in motorsport.
Shekhar Mehta, who was fondly known as the Safari Sheikh, is perhaps one of the most prominent rallying personalities in Kenya. He won the Safari Rally a record 5 times in 1973 and from 1979 to 1982. In 1981, he finished 5th in the World Rally Championship.
Shekhar Mehta was born in Uganda and his family was there. His father was a very pioneer of the sugar industries in Uganda. But Shekhar himself lived in Nairobi for many years. During the colonial days, prior to the independence, motorsports was a domain of the white community. But he was one of those beginners in the Asian community who managed to integrate with them, penetrate with them, and excelled in that sport to a level where he was a legend.
Shekhar Mehta was such a fantastic rally driver. He was so good at dealing with teams. He was even excellent a person to meet. I remember in the old days going to meet him in his office for advice and for help and so on. And he would always take the time to talk to me.
Another prominent personality from yesteryears was the Flying Sikh, Joginder Singh. He won the Safari Rally 3 times in 1965, 1974 and 1976. He had 13 top 10 finishes and only 3 retirements in his career of 22 years, making him arguably the greatest driver to have participated in the Safari Rally.
Joginder Singh was a born rally driver. His father was a mechanic, he became a mechanic, and they used to serve within the area in farms, and he used to get an opportunity of driving his dad's car on rough roads in sections over there. So that's where he developed his rallying skill. And when he started doing rallying, and of course he became very popular, and he was the first Sikh or a first non-European to win the Safari Rally in a second-hand Volvo, and he brought glory to the whole country and to the Sikh and to the Indian community here.
Joginder was unique in terms of driving style, in terms of he didn't follow the thinking of the Europeans in how you must drive, how you must set up the car for a corner and slide it and so on. He had his own technique, and it was successful in Africa.
We have the Flying Sikh, as we all love him. He was one person who I think every Kenyan Asian child should learn about, should know about, Joginder Singh. He won the 1974 and the 76 rally. His record finishes of 19 finishes out of 22, still amazing.
Today's Kenyan Asian youth are in the forefront in the tennis arena. Nikita Dauda at one time was the only seeded Kenyan tennis player.
When I started playing tennis, I was quite good at it, and I used to win the school competitions, and it just motivates you as a young child to win. So slowly like I started to take a step with more professional coaches. I was coached by Jim Davis himself. The best moment was when I had dislocated my knee while representing Kenya. I was out from tennis for 6 months, where I lost all my international ranking, local rankings, and then I think my best time and my happiest time was when I came back after the injury. And that was my first ever international tournament, like ITF tournament, world ranking tournament, where I managed to reach a final, in singles, which no Kenyan had ever done.
One of the most prominent shooting events in the world is the Bisley. Retired Brigadier Saeed Malik had managed and also captained the Kenya team to this event. He also represented Kenya at the 1990 Auckland Commonwealth Games.
Bisley is a very famous shoot. It has been going on for years, I think almost more than 100 years now. Bisley is a small town near Salisbury or near Aldershot in England. And every year for the full bore, the target rifle competition, you get about 3,000 to 3,500 shooters. And when you have a competition, you had 3 people per target, 3 shooters per target. So they are on 100 targets, with 300 people shooting at one time. 1990, we went to the Commonwealth Games. I was manager of the shooting team, and after that I went for 1994, and 1995 I think was my last shoot. I was a regular visitor at Bisley.
Jennifer Lewis is one of the first Kenyan Asians to have left her mark at the sport. She has been a very keen shooter, but her impact has been felt most in Kenya's judo ring.